Welcome to the Next Play podcast. I have Adam and Josh again. We're overcoming mistakes in life and in athletics. We are continuing our discussion on mental health and youth sports. And we are, we were pointing out, we all three see these things a little pretty similar, and it's not great for, argument's sake. But I do disagree a little bit with Josh on the last comment he made about anxiety and youth sports. Actually, I don't really disagree. I do think if athletics is causing you anxiety, it probably is better that you give up athletics. But I think the bigger issue is why would athletics cause you anxiety?
Yeah.
Why? That's the issue.
I think that's a great point. Anytime you're dealing with anxiety, I don't think the thing to do is stop it. Like, players have performance anxiety all the time. So that's definitely not what I was saying. She had played basketball since it was 6th to 8th grade.
Yeah. Yeah.
She was already ready to be done.
Yeah.
Too. And there's a big difference between like anxiety, like being nervous or not having a good time, and a kid literally having a meltdown who has not cried in front of humans since she was 4. And
Right.
Having a breakdown. It's like, okay, something is abnormal, something's wrong. And the reasoning was everyone's going to think I'm really good. And she didn't know what a zone defense was, because I don't teach any young kids anything about zone defenses, and they're playing zone and other girls are yelling at her.
Yeah. And there are
what new girl wouldn't be like really like shaken by that? And then nothing was happening about that. And it was just, all she wanted to do was be at the new school and make friends, and it didn't make a whole lot of sense when she didn't like it. And what she ended up getting to do was get back into dance, get into theater that year, and just blew it up. And if she did not play basketball, if she played basketball, she wouldn't have been doing those things.
Well, Adam and I talked in a couple other podcasts about, why is athletics stressful? Why? I mean, if you play it to the end, you miss a pressure free throw, you miss a pressure put, whatever it is. I mean, it's not life ending. It's just it. And if we make it bigger than it is, then I'd say that is an issue. So, all right, Adam, let's talk a little golf. Let's talk golf in youth real quick. I mean, because it's like, my stepson wanted me to play golf with him yesterday, and it was $38 to ride, which is really cheap. And it was hot. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not. It's too expensive, and I'm certainly not paying his, so I'm not doing it. So let's talk about the cost of golf and what did it cost at your country club that you were running?
So I was,
and this is many years ago too, so it's a lot more.
Yeah, it was, right. So I mean, it was around $60 for 18 holes on a weekend, give or take. But I mean, in short, it is an expensive sport. And in the junior golf level, I think it was a specialized sport before travel baseball or anything else, because there's all of these junior tours and clinics for the private club kids. And so I was poor as dirt growing up in Bluefield, West Virginia, 900 square foot home, family of 5 in that. And the way I got into golf was when I was 13, I started working at the private club, picking up balls, because I didn't have money to spend on the weekends to do anything else. And the problem
Did you work at Fincastle? Is that where you work?
Yep. Yeah. Got paid every 2 weeks, and I wanted to play in the junior tour because I played AAU and I wanted to play in the junior tour.
So you really started golf pretty late then at 13. That's pretty late.
Yeah. I was about 14 when I really got into it. 13, I didn't.
How bad do you think that hurt your development?
I caught up to them because the range balls were free. Right now I couldn't. The challenge is that junior tour events where you got exposure and you got competition and some other things that gave them the jump on me, and they had fitted clubs and the nicest things that you could have.
Yeah,
I got paid every 2 weeks, which would afford me to play in one tournament, right? And they were playing a tournament a week, and I didn't have enough points at the end of the season to make it to the championship, just because I couldn't play in enough tournaments because I couldn't fund to be able to do it. So it goes back to Josh's, kind of how he was rolling out in the last podcast of what has that sport done to include more in junior sports. And, That it is a challenge. It's an expensive sport. It historically was an elitist sport, but the first tee, some other programs that have got it into urban America, public golf courses, driving ranges, post COVID, when COVID shut down the world, it exposed people to golf because that was the only thing that was open as an outdoor recreation activity. So now we're seeing this influx in the golf business where more people, younger kids, different diversities are starting to get into it and take advantage of these programs that the United States Golf Association and the PGA Tour, which at the time, or PGA of America, two nonprofits, have been pumping money in, probably for tax breaks.
Man, that's so good that they got their finger on the pulse on that.
They're all in. Here's what, to Josh, to your point, when I was in the golf business, I'd go down to the PGA show. It happened once a year, and all 28,000 PGA professionals would go down to Florida and have kind of a town hall State of the Union. And we were leaking oil because at that time, attention spans have dwindled to 10 seconds. Nobody wanted to be out on a golf course for 4 hours. The Tiger boom, which spurred golf and diversity in golf in 97, started to slow down in 2008, 9, and 10. And so we were losing rounds of golf. The golf business was losing revenue. And they're like, what can we do to change this? And they were throwing stuff against the wall. Can we make the holes bigger? Can we make it cheaper? What can we do? They were trying all kinds of stuff to try to change golf. And COVID ended up being the COVID. And then I think the first tee for diversity and bringing in a bunch of different people from different socioeconomic environments. I think that was the biggest thing. And then I think COVID shutting it down and exposing athletes that were playing other sports to get into it have really given it a shot in the arm.
I really think the hole being bigger would be great. Hey, also too, I heard this the other day. Do you think you could cheat and make the basketball rim bigger and no one would notice? So like your second half rim, you could make it actually like 3 or 4 inches bigger.
You're going to be down 20 at half every game.
Than the first. I'm just saying, is it
how we were at Lee?
Is it possible, like, could one get away with that? I'm not suggesting doing it. In fact, I think it's a horrendous idea. But is it possible that you can have different size rims from, I think you could.
Coach Brown, you say that, but it sounds like you did that at Lee. And at Bluefield College, the second half rim had a bolt missing, and it was 9.5 foot tall.
I've had so many people say, "Man, you are the greatest halftime adjustments guy I've ever been around." At both places. So it is but I don't
know what you do. I don't know if you know how that spring-loaded rim works, but
that first half rim at Bluefield was tight. Same way at Lee. Lee. And
we'd be down 5 to a team that wasn't very good. Tommy be freaking out and be like, dude, we get the rim this half. Remember that. You're fine. Yes, we're fine.
We got the rim. Yeah. Hey, man, such great adjustments. And then we had, Adam, one year we played this team, Faulkner, who pressed after every made basket. And so we made the rim that they go to, it would stick in the net. The ball would stick in the net. So they couldn't like, oh, no. On offense, what they would do is they would get it out of the net so fast and they'd be up. So they were so great on makes in transition. So we made the nets tight so that they brand new net. So they couldn't get the ball out and go with it. So anyway.
So the Celtics in '86 did that, their last banner before 2008.
That's right.
They were all getting old.
Yeah, they made some regulations after that.
Yeah. So they did that, and then they put there were parquet floor. So they put the parquet floor, they put a dead spot right under the basket. So when the ball dropped, it would not bounce back up. And then they also put it on the running lanes, like for a transition break, so that they'd have it going wide, like foul line extended, going down both ways. So you get going, the ball would not come back up, when you go against them.
So is that cheating? What is that? Is that, Josh? Is that just gamesmanship? What is that? Is that cheating?
I mean, whatever the rules are, man.
I think making the rim bigger is.
Tom Brady thinks it's good.
Oh, on the footballs.
The GOAT.
Hey, no, I mean that making the rims different sizes would be absurd. I mean, really every
That
possession
is
is the same,
definitely
right?
wrong.
It's the
What?
same. Yeah, it's definitely wrong. It's the same. The only advantage would be that they don't know.
Yeah.
Because if they knew, then they're going to use that to their advantage in the first half. They're going to zone the crap of you out of you in the first half and just be jacking threes.
Yeah. Hey, listen, man.
Why did they shoot 36 threes in the first half and 2 in the second half?
Yeah, oh, man. Yeah. They hey, listen, we got to
Hey
get
guys,
turnovers. We got
second
to
half
get turnovers
adjustment.
we got to get turnovers in the first half and shoot layups because the second we got to.
Second half
I really
adjustment.
think
We won't shoot
the
any
rim at
threes
Bruton
before
Parker.
5 seconds on the shot clock
I
left.
really think the rim at Bruton Parker in the second half, it was jinx. Like you could not make a shot on that thing. Like
I think that whole place was jinxed.
yeah, I do too. Yeah.
Especially when we had the stands clearing brawl.
Yeah. All right. Back to youth sports and yeah, Josh was suspended for that, Adam. So what happened?
Come on.
Coach,
I mean, hey, listen, I've owned up to my suspensions.
I didn't do anything. I got punched in the ear by somebody and only said a bad word at one our athletic director because he grabbed my arm from behind.
Adam, what do you think about handshake lines?
Oh, you definitely need to be away from those.
Tommy does for sure.
Yeah.
That's not funny, Josh.
He's a new man.
You're just giving people too much ammo. When you lose, you're not in the emotional state to show respect. It's a competition. You tell everybody to go eat the other person's soul for 40 minutes, and then you want them to shake hands at the very end.
Yeah.
That's my thought. Here's a question for the group real quick, and I was thinking about this earlier and I forgot it. So we talk about not pressuring, no specialization in youth sports. What age do you have to be if you're going to be a kid to say now it's time to specialize and turn on? Because at some point you got to switch gears. You got to go.
Here's my quick opinion on that. I think in as much as expected of athletes in the off season these days, I don't think it's realistic that someone can play more than 2 sports in high school. Mm-hmm. I just don't think. I think it's just too much on mentally, physically, everything because of the summer, all those things. I think 2 is great. I think up till high school play as many things as you want. But once you get, in the 9th grade, try to come up with, 2 and because it's just too much time, is my opinion. So what are your thoughts, Josh?
I've cut kids specifically because basketball wasn't there too. It wasn't in there too.
Yeah.
They weren't the best at basketball. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to make it easy for them because they're never going to get a whole lot of playing time. It's going to be really, really hard. And they could add something right now. They deserve maybe to be on the team, but it's going nowhere. Yeah. And they're already capped. That especially happens sophomore year after sophomore year. But I really think young people shouldn't be specializing. I think a lot of the problem, I mean, you got the soft tissue stuff that's a problem when you're specializing in one sport. Whoops. This is what we're looking at,
Josh, for those just listening, Josh just showed knee surgery,
partial knee replacement. I'm only 42. I've only needed it for 12 years.
Adam, how old are you?
39.
Yeah, so y'all would have almost played against each other. Adam, Temple came up to our classic one year and got beat by Bluefield College. So
a young freshman, Josh Templeton, that was a shameless gunner, did drop some buckets on TB.
So
he was yelling at David Bethby so bad. Like David Bethby can't guard Tommy. He can't guard. David, you can't guard.
What about Dale Evans? Was he playing?
Dale Evans was not on. The game would not have been close if Dale Evans had been a Blue.
Dale Evans was a one-man bucket.
Hey, David had him a game in that one. David went off in that game. I remember that. He welcomed me to college basketball. I'll never forget David Vespi hitting a 3 in the corner when I was high contest, got up and everything. And this is before Steph Curry. He's literally like the year 1999 doing the shoot it, turn around and run. That's David Vespi. He had swished it in my face, didn't even look.
So, Adam, I would say to answer your question, I think up until high school, I'd say as many things as they want to do. Try it, and that's great. But I think over 2, it's just not. Even let's say you stay in Abingdon and they go to Abingdon High School. Those times, even at, I think even a smaller school where they're really pressuring you to play lots of things, that becomes an issue too. I do a lot of clinics where these athletes are playing 3 or 4 sports, and it's hard, and they're doing all these things in the summer. And, you get one high school career, but still, I think it's difficult.
Do you all think that there should be a state funded or county funded position in the education system for a counselor aligned to the sports team? So like a guidance counselor for academics, and then should there be somebody aligned to the sports team? There is in college. So should there be in high school? Because I'm looking at the head coach in a lot of high schools that may be good with X's and O's, but they have no understanding of this adolescent in front of them that have more pressures than we do in adulthood, trying to figure out their identity, their social environment as they're growing and changing, all of that. But yet we put a sports psychologist with college when you're basically grown, you already have that self-confidence because you're playing collegiate sports and you're good. So are we missing the mark? Because we have positions for everything funded by the county and state and school system. And I just don't see one in that area.
I think 10 years from now, we'll have a lot more mental health, a lot more sports psychologists working with high school athletes, and, maybe like it's county funded, those types, kind of like the way strength training has evolved, probably when back when you were in high school. I mean, we didn't have a strength trainer, it was like, hey, do 3
10, 8, 6, 4, 2, squat, deadlift, bench press.
Yeah. 3 sets of bench on Monday. Yeah. Do squats on Tuesday. I mean, that's what we had. We didn't have it. We didn't have that strength training guy yelling at us, one more. I mean, none of that. So I think there will be that, but here's my fear of that. Someone who's been kind of studying since I'm working on this sports psychology degree that I plan to get done by the time I'm 90, that field is, I don't know how many people truly understand athletics and truly understand mental health, both of those. That
would make the said person a valuable commodity. And how many ex-athletes that had actually been through some stuff that would make great sports psychologists, like with the experience that they're bringing in. And also too, it's like, you don't have to just do away with all of that work and identity. You have this set of skills that you can bring in. Like, I think that for post-college athletes, I mean, especially ones that were there should be more tracks where they can use the team and leadership skills and put that into corporate America, or put it into like any of that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no tracks outside of basketball, specifically, where people are actually, because I think a lot of times if people will recruit some of these athletes or some of these people that really understand team dynamics and diverse team dynamics, I mean, running a team is very difficult.
Yes.
It's not something that it's not a job that anyone and everyone does. It requires a certain level of charisma. And I think there's a lot of floundering ex-athletes and coaches that are like, there's no money in this, I can't get paid. And then they're doing something like selling vacuums or something.
Right.
Well, I do, Adam, like, I think but to get a counseling degree is incredibly extensive. That. I mean, it is not just something you're picking up online in a couple hours.
But if you get a guidance counselor degree, right? I mean, you get paid like a 12-month employee, like a guidance counselor, and you align a guidance counselor, somebody that has a master's or even an undergrad with a basic framework of the symptoms of anxiety, depression, and a baseline understanding of treatment that you can use, tactics you can use to address it at the rudimentary level. We don't need somebody to rewire their brains, but somebody that can be a liaison with that athlete and the coaches to be that person, just like the guidance counselor at school. They're dealing with all kinds of crazy cases from people with difficult backgrounds, and they're coming to school every day and they're having to address it daily. So, I mean, it'd be the same thing. It wouldn't be someone like you that can give you performance tactics. It would be more of a watchdog, an accountability partner that could come in and notice when some of these things are happening. Because I can tell you, a lot of these head coaches, they don't.
Did you see where Ole Miss, their entire football staff got mentally health certified, like some type
That's
of
brilliant.
Yeah,
That's
and I
brilliant.
think that's going to happen. I was on a
Yeah.
group text. Yeah, I think that'll be
That's
CPR.
awesome.
CPR certification is worthless in my opinion because I gave CPR to my father-in-law who died while I was giving him CPR. So I mean CPR is anyway.
Not
I
worthless.
could get it's.
I had a classmate go down
I
in
know
PE
it's not
class with a
worthless.
heart attack, and they
Yeah.
saved him.
I don't know. I say it's. I
I
didn't.
know, man.
Worthless. I meant like once someone gets to that point, most of the time.
Yeah.
But anyway, I do think that coaches are there's gonna be mental health certifications just like CPR, and that is, I think, a wonderful idea. Although I do think coaches will balk against it, and I don't
I
know
think
what
everyone
curriculum's
should.
gonna like.
I think
I don't.
everybody should. It's not that hard to get mental health and trauma informed. It really isn't.
Yeah.
Like to learn the language, to learn what's actually going on, to learn that these things that are happening to these kids are actually going to affect their behaviors as adults,
Yeah.
and to help them see why their behaviors are what they are. Like all it takes is being in tune. I'm not saying we shouldn't have definitely should have a certification.
Yeah.
Like, but the last 5 years and 3 years, like I didn't have a choice with COVID hitting,
Yeah.
with everything that everybody was going through, with deaths in families, with all of these things that were happening with our players and their families and their girlfriend. Like we had a kid whose girlfriend died on the way to school. We lost one, um, a couple years ago. And that, I mean, let me tell you something. Everything starts coming out for everybody. Like when you're faced with your mortality, your whole life starts coming into account. And there's kids with existential crises forced upon them, and then they're expected to go play in 2 nights or a week. Like we don't have enough people helping these kids. Like I've seen kids with eating disorders, I don't know, and there's just not enough counselors. But
Yeah.
everybody can pull some weight and at least not make it worse if they're mental health and trauma informed. Like I don't know what we're waiting on with that kind of stuff. But that's something,
I think
being
I
on the
think that
ground the
Adam,
last
maybe
5
talk. I
years.
know
I get
you've said,
hot.
yeah, Adam, you've said some good things on the difference between mental toughness and mental health. Let's maybe wrap up with you addressing that a little bit. The difference between mental health and mental toughness, because I think we've decided, we thought they are different. They're definitely different. So
yeah. Quick story on that. So just got done with a book called Legacy about the All Blacks, the rugby team.
yeah,
That's a phenomenal book. It talks about team in general and the importance of establishing a team identity rules, meaning or affirmations, like here's who we are as a team. They have their leaders sweep the shed as an example. So their captains after the game, after they get untaped and do all the stuff, not the rookies, but the captains clean up the entire locker room. It's not the trainers, it's not the support staff, it's the
wow,
leaders.
yeah,
They look out for themselves. So they have all these mantras, they have these affirmations, these things of who their identity is. And once you become a part of that team, your outcome is different than your identity. Your identity is already written like the 12 commandments. This is who we are. And
yeah,
then anything that happens beyond that, you lose a game, you're not there in the present, you're not executing how you should, which happens based on whatever's happening with your personal life, whatever it may be. Maybe you had a flat game, maybe you got hungover the night, whatever. But the story is your identity and your outcome are different.
yeah,
And so when you look at mental health and you look at mental toughness, I think mental toughness is dealing with variables, dealing with circumstances,
yeah,
having grit and an awareness of who you are, what your intent is, what you have to what your resources, and
yeah,
it's staying in the game. I think mental health is when you're not quite sure. You're not sure, like anxiety as an example. That's ultimately a fear of dying or being kicked out of the tribe, period. It's like you go back millions of years, that's it. You're afraid of
yeah,
dying or afraid of. So it's either you're worried about what others will think, you're worried about your own survivorship, whatever it may be. It's going back to an irrational fear. That's linked to your who you believe that you are, what your worldview is, and not being convicted in those things. And
yeah,
so I think that's the difference. And it happens a lot more in youth because you're still developing who you are, and your environment, your upbringing, your parents play a big role in that, or the lack thereof play a big role in that. And then genetically, there's some things that you're going to, through your DNA, you're going to have to deal with that you're predisposed to. But at the end of the day, that's a beautiful thing about team sport. And I'll digress with this is your mental health can really be helped with team sport in youth. If you have a great leader, you have a great team with a great set of principles, or what you define as a team rules, right? Because now you're buying into this thing that's bigger than yourself. Josh, you talked about it earlier about us, not me, not you, but us. When you have that thing that you can link to, it helps you cope with the challenges so much better, because those challenges aren't who you are. They're not ultimately going to impact you. You can use it as an empowering tool. So I'll hop off the soapbox, but
no, that is unbelievable. And I think we ought to end with that, or we
The
can.
anxiety too, like a lot of times it's just going to be brain chemistry and trauma, like something that you went through, and or like what you said, genetics, like, and that is the biggest thing is like, can you put your finger on why you're feeling like this? No, I can't. That's when you know, like, there's something going on. There's something that we need to get regulated. And again, I'm going through this stuff right now. I mean, since I got COVID, my anxiety, my impulse control, like everything has been just not right. It's like out of whack. And I mean, I'm gonna probably check myself into a mood and addiction center just to get this figured out. Like, why am I having this physical reaction to nothing?
Josh, making it more public
for the last 5 years. And I'm gonna tell people, like, I don't care. Like, I literally don't care anymore. Like, I'll tell people I'm the toughest bad word that you know, but at the same time, like, I'm having to be tough enough to admit to myself when something's out of my control physically and I need some help. And the brain is an organ just like any other thing. And when you deal with stuff like insomnia, disease, trauma, like, this stuff has to be worked through and it has to be dealt with. And these kids, what they've lived through the last 3 years and what they live through every day. We talked about pressure and performance anxiety, but we never mentioned social media and the fact that they might get pantsed online on video. And then that if they miss the game losing free throw or the game winning free throw and they miss it, they're going to have 20 messages in their DMs or comments on the game thing that said they choked and all of that stuff. Like, it's crushing. Like, we need to, as a whole culture, talk about the fact that a center from Ohio State literally almost killed himself and had to walk away from football, and he was an NFL prospect because Ohio State's fan base was calling him names and just being overall jerk. And he was 19. It's like, no, he's the toughest dude. He's a 4.0 student that went to Buford in Georgia. Like, dude's legit. Like, and this is another area where right now it's a lot of privileged people talking about mental health and stuff like that. And finally, like, because I'd never heard of such a thing. Like, I never knew, growing up in a religious area, growing up in Highland Park and at Temple, like, it was never a thing. Like, I never knew. No, nobody really knew. And now people are starting to realize it and normalizing it. And even at the, like, I was talking about like privilege with, like, even with basketball. And it's like, well, what if you don't have any money? What can you do? Well, you can go play basketball, you can go play football, or you can box. Well, thanks for the gladiator sports that I can not have a rattled brain when I'm 40. Thanks. Like, why can't we have, everyone will be better, especially football players, if they can find some kind of balance. And mental health, physical is great. But what are we doing to exercise the brain that doesn't involve looking at a screen or a video game? Like, what are we doing? Why don't we get these athletes like, hey, you're going to play this and this, but you also got to be in this class for an instrument. Do you want to do music? Do you want to do drama? Because that will help performance anxiety if you're on stage. Do you want to do art? Like, do you want to paint? Like, something early. You know what I mean? Not make everything about basketball. And that's the problem, is there's misinformation out there because the experts aren't saying anything, because if they make the wrong AAU coach mad, they can't recruit anymore.
Well, I know,
Yeah.
I am smarter as a result of my friendship with you two. And so that's one thing I'm doing for growth, is talking to smart people like you two. So there you go. Is that good?
Same.
All right.
Same.
Hey, well, we will end up there. Thanks again to Josh and Adam, and hopefully we'll have on Josh many, many more times, and we'll catch you again. Hey, seriously, go right now and subscribe and give us a 5-star review. And if you have a problem with what we're doing, then you can just email Josh directly. So
Directly.
directly.
And these guys have some serious content coming out. I'm getting ready to start some stuff too.
Yeah.
Y'all better be subscribing just to be keeping up with what's going on, because we're about to get deep into the weeds on some of this stuff. See if we can at least discuss some of the world's problems. We ain't gonna solve them, but we're gonna bring some awareness, right, Adam?
That's right. That's right. All right. We'll see you next time, and Josh will be on again. I promise. We'll see you.